Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the weekly IPython development meeting for Thursday, the 5th of June 2014. We're a bit short-handed this week, which is why you've got me doing the introduction rather than someone else. So it will probably be quite a short meeting. Let's get on without any further ado. So the first thing on the hackpad is that we were asked if we wanted to have a birds of a feather session at SciPy this year. I get the impression that they're a bit short of BOF sessions. This is the first year that they've allowed you to propose BOF sessions in advance. So they put out both a general call and an email specifically to us saying, would we like to do one on IPython? And Fernando said, oh yes, that's a great idea. So I've set up a proposal on the SciPy conference website and hopefully invited all the core team to be collaborators on that. At the moment, I've just put a completely generic abstract in there, just saying like we're going to talk about IPython development and plans. What, if anything, do we want to put in that?
If I remember correctly, the people who worked on Google integration should be at SciPy. Maybe they want to participate to that.
Yep, that's a good idea.
This is going to run at the same time as like the Python 3 BOF too, right?
No.
No, we're specifically asking for it to be scheduled separately from the Python 3 BOF because, yeah, Fernando and I at least will want to attend that since we've been pushing for it.
Question. For those of us who do not know, what's a birds of the feather?
Oh, so it's just like most of the conference is talks, but they set aside some time for these, from the saying birds of a feather flock together, just sessions where you assign a topic and anyone who's interested in that topic can turn up and talk about it.
Ah.
It's like a discussion group.
Got it.
Yeah.
IPython Anonymous.
And they're usually they're just, they put up a sheet of paper when you get to the conference and you just write down what you want to do. This year, for the first time, they've decided to actually have them, or at least some of them, scheduled in advance.
Well, do we want to move to the first or the next thing on the... Oh, I see.
We can try to wait a few seconds to see if Brian can join.
All right.
He said that he will be joining.
Yeah, actually, on that PR, I think Paul was involved, right? But Paul's not here.
I guess even the MViewer stuff that I put on, I probably want to wait until we had Min and Brian. Maybe I'll push that off.
What's this computable app thing that Matthias has?
Oh, that's
the
announcement.
iPad.
01 on the mailing list. Hey, hi Brian.
Hey Brian.
Hello everyone. Hello Internet.
So announcement for those who haven't seen, Brian got 10 years last week.
Woo! Well done, Brian.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you everyone. I literally couldn't have done it without all of you.
So we were just finishing a bird of feather discussion, and we are carrying on the hackpad. So computablaapp.com is IPython on iPad. You probably have seen that on the mailing list. I also privately mailed the author because there was bugs on the website, and he responded to me, and we had some discussion, and I will probably share that with the mailing list later. Like things he wants to have an easier way to have kernel which are in threads instead of separate process because of restriction in iOS where you cannot send several processes. and a few other stuff here and there. We will probably not discuss here right now because we tapped on an issue on GitHub.
Okay.
So that's what it. I mean, it's the websites look nice. He asked for people to try the beta. I don't know how many people in the IPython team have iPads. I don't, so I cannot try. So you can register.
Definitely try it.
Oh yeah, and one technical point is he totally rewrote the front end in, I suppose it's Objective-C. So he's using a web view, but not using our JavaScript at all, if you understood correctly.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's sounds like a lot of work, but hey, I mean, it looks nice.
Yeah. One issue is you have a lot of restriction in iPads that you cannot download executable code, and IPython counts as executable code, so you have to go through mail and or syncing stuff to get notebooks on your iPad. Which is shame. But anyway.
So, on to this first PR.
Yeah.
Brian, now you're here, we just quickly hop back to the birds of a feather thing. Is there anything that you would like us to put in the abstract for the birds of a feather IPython session that we're proposing at SciPy?
Oh, nothing in particular. I think just having a general discussion is great.
Great.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay then, on to the PRs.
Okay, on to the first PR. So Paul and Matthias were discussing this one. I think they had opposing views, so I don't know if maybe we want to hold off on deciding what to do with this, but it's been around for a while, so I just put it up for discussion. And what this PR does is extends the load magic so it can load directly from GIS. So I don't know. I put it up so to see if anybody wanted to close it, if they had strong feelings about it not being in IPython, or maybe the other way around.
And just to clarify, so I mean, GIS are available through a URL. Well, so yeah, what's the syntax? I'm trying to. Okay, here it is. Before.
So I think it's just that at the moment you can load a gist by putting the URL to the raw file.
Yep.
This will let you put just the gist URL, and it will recognize that and turn it into the raw file. I can see Paul's point that gists are by no means the only thing that have a nicely formatted representation and a raw link. I don't have strong feelings either way on whether it's appropriate.
Should we just leave it open indefinitely?
Well, I think there's some precedence for this in the sense that we do provide this type of thing for NB Viewer.
This type of thing is certainly reasonable, but I think the concern would be that there's a lot of sites that there's other GitHub files, Bitbucket, other paste bins that all do a similar thing.
Yeah, there's
more toward a pluggable way of saying, hey, for this particular case of URL, do that, and ship it with the example of gists.
I mean, and I think maybe the main question then is, are these other sources of code within the scope of IPython and the load magic? And actually, I could definitely see an argument for saying this is just not what load is for. If someone wants to write third-party magics for loading code from their favorite location, we encourage the community to do that, because it does get a little bit difficult for us to say yes to gist, but no to Bitbucket, or yes to.
Matplotlib. We often tell people to use load to load code from the Matplotlib gallery, and frankly, it's annoying to get the raw thing. So I would have an extensible way of plugging into the load magic and have like just a regular expression and a string where we do interpolation, so that you can say, hey, if this is a Matplotlib gallery figure, just get the raw one. And gist should probably be just that, add things here and there in the URL. After, if it's something which is really more complicated,
I can see the argument for making it an extensible mechanism, but I don't think any users would actually bother to extend it.
Yeah,
because when you actually want to use it, it's easier just to get the raw URL than it is to. With gists, we also have the extra complication of a gist can contain more than one file. Do we just take the first file, whatever it happens to be? Do we try and iterate through the files looking for the first one that is suitable to load?
Yeah. No, there is that. I think I would rather, if we want to allow this type of thing, I'd rather just build it in. Rather than having it be an extensible thing. So when you do a GET request on the raw URL, what do you get back?
Sorry, when you say the raw URL, do you mean the? The URL for the raw file, you will just get back the raw file.
But what
the
if
URL for the gist itself, you get the
page
HTML.
I guess what I'm asking is, what if there's more than one file in that gist? What would you get back when you get the raw?
Oh, I asked.
Well, there's a separate raw URL for each file.
I asked him that in the issue. He said the user will see error_reporting 0. So here, I'll copy this link into the hackpad. So if you scroll down, I asked.
So this is interesting. So when you if you do a GET request, let me see. I'm just trying this out on just right now.
you get the JSON API of it.
Yeah, but if there's more than one file, you actually get. Hold on, let me just verify this. So if you do a GET request on the raw URL of a gist that has multiple files, you get a really funny message. Like, I think this is a bug on gist.
The error_reporting message?
No, here, can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Desktop. So here's the message. Can everyone see that?
Huh.
Well, can't see it now.
Oops, sorry. I guess I can't look at it and show it to you at the same time. There.
Huh.
Yeah, no, exactly. Huh, that's weird. So the URL for the single file looks like that. So it has the gist ID here, but then raw, and then probably some sort of
Revision or something?
yeah get hash, and then the file name.
That's strange because I'm just looking at another one that was this was an example that was linked from the issue that John commented on, and here the raw URL just has the content of the first.
Yeah, so this exact stuff is like coded around in MBViewer.
Yeah. How do I stop sharing my screen?
Click the you have.
I see your face now.
Oh, okay, so but my, oh, come on. It's totally hosed my, hold on. There we go. All right. Okay. Yeah.
So particular.
Yeah, I think I probably have maybe a 60%, 65% preference to not to declare this as being outside the scope of load. Yeah. That's probably my preference. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think I'm about similar.
Yeah, I guess they have to know the exact URL for what they're pulling.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean,
we've had to change that like section of code for the minifile stuff as GitHub has changed their API, so it'd be kind of be yet another third-party thing that.
Yeah.
Brian, that was the content of the first file on your gist.
Oh, right.
That would explain the really weird.
So it's consistent. If
Okay,
you
it is
put
consistent.
a pure row, it gives the first file.
Okay.
All right.
So yeah, John, do you want to
Close that one?
Yeah. Post a note about our decision and
Yeah,
And
I'll do
close
that.
the remaining issue which is linked.
Great.
I will do that.
Okay, so widget persistence, concerns about malicious widget state. John.
Yes. So what I've been working on lately. So we spent all this time making sure that the notebook was, somewhat secure, and now there's this talk about moving everything into iframes. I guess we're still not quite sure if that's going to be feasible or not. But one of the big problems with the widget persistence is when you refresh your notebook, if you have widgets on there, I mean, it re-renders the JavaScript of those widgets. They might be disabled, they might not be connected to a COM, but they're going to have the last state that they did when the notebook was last rendered, regardless if you've signed it or not. So that means that the state is a good entry point for any type of malicious code, especially with things like the HTML widget. It would be really easy to just have some malicious HTML in your last state. Also, things that are a little more complicated, like styling. You could have CSS that was malicious. So I was just wondering if you guys had any opinions on how to handle that. One thing that I thought of that we could do is just sign the widgets.
They are signed. The
Sign.
notebook is signed.
Oh, is it? I thought we just signed the outputs.
No, we trust the cell, but the whole notebook is signed. The signature is a full file.
Ah, okay. So then all I need to do is respect that signature for the entire file, right? Because right now I don't respect it. I just
basically a widget upon page reload will only be redisplayed if the notebook is trusted.
okay.
It will be most of the case.
Okay. So
Unless you start with an unsigned notebook, you do some modification on it, and you save it, and
Yeah,
then you reload.
I don't particularly like this answer, but I don't see how.
But if we can get the secure iframe thing working and put widgets inside iframes, then we're all right on that front, aren't we?
yes, if we could do that.
Yeah, I mean that's.
I think from what Minard said that part of what the collaboratory people have done is to they put all the output in iframes and use the secure mode thing. As I guess they have it a bit easier because they only have to care about one browser. But it sounds like it is, at least in principle, possible to follow that approach.
Yeah, we talked about that quite a bit. Honestly, output is not too bad. The widgets are going to be really difficult because the widgets the widgets necessarily involve page global content as well.
Oh yes, of course they have to be able to talk to the comm manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all the models are page wide. They're not per cell.
Yeah, and we need to register. The different types need to be registered and accessible.
Yeah, so I honestly don't know if we're going to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Plain output after seeing and talking to the people at Google, I'm optimistic about that.
But widgets probably not. Okay.
Yeah,
That's a bit of a blow, but it's what we have to live with.
Yeah.
Is there any way that we can, like in the untrusted case, that we can handle part of the widget loading and display? Because I mean,
Yeah,
the typical case is just going to be a slider where the value of the slider is stored, and there's nothing malicious that the number 5 can do, except in IE.
Yeah, I mean, I think in principle that's possible, but we would basically have to security audit individual widgets and understand which part of the widget is always safe versus which part of the widget is not always safe.
I mean, would it work to just have a whitelist of, our own basic widget types and don't apply any styling that?
Yeah. It would have to be a whitelist of widget type and keys.
Yeah, the problem right now is that I'm not sure I trust our ability to protect that whitelist. Right? I mean, is it possible for me to run code that is safe except adds a new widget to whitelist?
Well, I mean, if you run code, then it's possible for it to be safe apart from performing any malicious action that it wants. So our model has always been that once you run code, then it's up to you what code you're running. It's only loading that we try to protect.
Yeah, I think it would be fine. I think we could totally manage whitelist.
The question is whether that's a useful thing to do.
Kyle, any thoughts on this?
Not really, no. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm of the same opinion as Thomas.
Okay.
That's what I like to hear. Maybe we can put this back on the agenda for a meeting when we've got some combination of Fernando, Min, and Paul.
Yeah, no, I think
non-strict
that would be
subs.
helpful.
Let's see.
Because I'm sure some of them will have opinions about this.
Yeah, John, I would say for now, maybe focus on other parts of the widget persistence stuff until we can discuss this further and think a little bit more about the security parts of the widget.
Yeah.
Persistence.
That makes sense. I think I should at least have the mechanism to respect signing, and whether or not I do anything with it.
Okay.
I think it seems pretty clear that the mechanism to respect signing is going to need to be there, whatever we end up doing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, moving on. Actually, this we don't need to talk about. We already made a decision. Is there a strikeout on HackPad? There isn't. Is there?
Yes, there is. I can see it.
Oh, there it is. Perfect.
Yeah, you got there just before me.
Let's see. Oh, I didn't write that. Right?
I did. So this is a new pull request that opened, and I think there's two parts of this. One is that this person wants to customize how Markdown is parsed and rendered, and to implement that, they want to use hooks. But this take on hooks is a little bit different than how I've seen in other contexts. And my current thought is that our precise Markdown syntax is really part of the notebook format, and that someone is more than welcome to fork IPython and make a new format. That's always the case. But I think we don't want to add logic within IPython that allows individual users to modify what we mean by Markdown. Obviously, those notebooks won't work with NBConvert, NBViewer, and any other tools that they're not going to work on Google, the Collaboratory, for example.
Actually, I think with that PR, there was a PR that I wrote that we merged yesterday that mixed GFM with STech. I think they could just define a new IPython GFM, and it would override it. So
but it's not the syntax highlighting though.
Oh, that's not what they're talking about.
No, it's the actual. I mean, hold on, let me.
It's the same as redefining a new markup language, right? And we already had this discussion.
Yes.
I saw this PR, and he wants a series of callbacks with a number associated with each, and they're run in order according to the number.
Yes.
I think it's pretty well established now that ordering actions by assigning each one a number and kind of juggling them around so that the numbers correspond to the order you want is a bad idea. I mean, that's how ancient versions of BASIC had line numbers. Code for that. So, the init system of having a sequence of numbers that you run through is something we're moving away from. It seems like,
absolutely,
dependency graphs do this thing, then trigger that thing, are the way to go, not do this with numbers.
But I completely agree with you, but in my mind, I'm leaning towards saying no matter how nicely it's implemented, we don't want to support mutations of our Markdown syntax within IPython. I mean, They can do it separately all they want.
Yeah, I mean, I would lean slightly more towards, it's up to them what they want to mess around with the markdown syntaxes, but we don't necessarily feel any obligation to make it easy.
Yeah, no, and I mean, honestly, it's not particularly hard right now. They just have to basically subclass or write their own markdown cell class. And so in either case, someone is going to have to write something in custom JS or in their profile static. What does everyone else think? John, any?
I'm all for not making our JavaScript more complicated.
And that's the other. Yeah.
I have a strong opinion for not making it more complicated.
Yeah, and part, I mean, I think this is one thing that I mean, it's a subtle effect, I think, but every decision we make about the JavaScript and the front end, as of the last month, all of those decisions have to be justified in other contexts, such as a Objective-C front end for the notebook running on an iPad, such as collaboratory, and I think the notebook format and the precise meaning of Markdown is something that we want to be really, really strict about, and basically say, if you want to call yourself an IPython notebook, you can't divert from that. Matthias?
Yeah, that's reasonable enough. I mean, if we take over the world, we can define our new snowman delimited language.
Yes. Okay, I'll put together a response, both talking about the underlying issues about customization of Markdown, but also this particular implementation that Thomas raised.
Which just leaves Kyle, authentication on private notebooks.
We've already discussed this one in the PR. This is the one where someone brought up how to do authentication against GitHub, which raises a whole bunch of issues, and I think overall requires change in MBViewer for how we display the notebooks. Otherwise, we're going to run into all sorts of security issues.
Yes, because at the moment the notebook can run arbitrary JavaScript and have complete access to the page, precisely because we don't have any secure information of our own there.
Yeah. And part of what we're going to have to think very carefully about is there's the technical aspects of providing auth on NBViewer. There's also the legal aspects in terms of if something bad were to happen, there is some legal entity that's liable, and we need to understand what legal entity that is and work closely with them to make sure that we're covered. And I'm guessing it's num-focused. I mean, that's my feeling, but
that's the only legal entity there is, really.
Well, there's all of us individually. There's our universities.
Yes, I suppose so.
We don't want Kyle to implement this and someone important to lose all of their repositories on GitHub and Rackspace to be sued, or I mean, the stakes become rather high.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not that this can't happen, but it's a bigger thing than a PR. It's going to
Yeah.
probably require pretty much a reboot of NB Viewer.
Yeah. No, I think, and I think that reboot has. I guess my only point is that reboot is both a technical question and an organizational legal question that honestly we may even need to work with some of the NumFocus legal team and have some sort of terms of service for NB Viewer or something appropriate that basically cover ourselves.
And even in the legal sense, so ignoring the legal sense, if we had a snafu, I would hate to violate the trust of our users.
Oh, no, yeah, obviously that's
be on there so the reason I like post it, because I know we're not going to get any traction on it, is like I wish I could say something else in the PR, but in reality, like I feel like I need to give a lot more time to fully audit what he's going for and what we end up doing. And so, like, yeah, I'm not really sure what to say.
The PR has already flow because if the user is logged in and the thing gets cached,
right,
then if another user that don't have the right to access hits the same URL, it gets served from the cache without checking that it has the right to see the notebook.
Yeah,
so
none of the auth setup.
View notebook when you're not allowed to view it with the right timing. So obviously, we need to think about that much more.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, Kyle, do you want one of us, me or Fernando, to sort of summarize our thinking on that pull request?
Yeah, I think that would be good, because a lot of it's out of scope for me personally.
Okay.
I mean, like I can help audit the code, but I'm like well away from the legal side. So.
Yeah. Okay. I'll post something on that. But it is. I mean, I think we're all in agreement that this is a direction we want to move in for sure, and I'll be clear about that because it's something I think that's really important in the long run.
Yeah, but you at least need someone, at least one person, which is full time only on that.
Yeah, and that is
troubling part there. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a good point, Matthias, because that type of security risk is the type of thing that if we ever find something, we need to make sure that someone can be on it immediately. You know that. Yeah, we can't. Yeah. Okay.
All right, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Does anyone have any other business?
Just another. So John and I have been sitting down with the Bootstrap 3, his Bootstrap 3 pull request, and right now we're going through and doing basically visual diffing, where I have the pull request open in the live notebook, he has the master open, and we're just literally walking the DOM in using the developer tools, looking at all the CSS, the font sizes, the colors, and it's pretty tedious, and we're trying to make it look the same so that there's no actual sort of redesign work going on in this pull request. In reality, though, there's some design things in the old version that are just so rotten that it's hard to do this without fixing them. But it would be great if people could start to try out that pull request, and especially explore the parts of our user interface that don't show up very often. So modal dialogues, widgets, cell toolbar UIs. It just, that those things aren't on the page by default, and so they tend to get a little bit neglected. The tooltip, tab completer, but I think we'll be able to sit down more today and push on that, because it's sort of in our critical path right now in terms of doing more work. And
Brian, did you have time to work on that right now with me, or later, you think?
I have a colloquium to go to from 11 to 12, but then I'm basically free from 12 to 4 today. So
Okay, do you want to send me the notes of what we did yesterday, so then I can make those changes?
Yes. Sorry, I didn't do that.
Oh no, it's no big deal.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. And then the other. So, John, have you described to everyone the current state of the widget persistent stuff? Not from the security standpoint, but just in terms of what it does.
I think we did in the last hangout.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't obviously.
Sure, but you weren't there, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I was not.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I have one more point, because about last time we had internationalization pull requests.
Yes.
The person did hook it with a translating service which is called Transiflex, which is just a website. I had a quick look at it. It seems nice. It gives you an interface with the thing you have to translate, and you can say, yes, I like this translation and everything. I have not investigated how much it sends things back to GitHub or how we can integrate it.
I've used Transiflex from a project owner point of view. There is a Transiflex command line client, so you do tx pull, and it brings in the updated translations from Transiflex, and then you can commit them and upload them to GitHub.
Yeah, so it's from a random user point of view that have never used it and just wants to translate something. It's pretty easy to do. In 5 minutes, you get logged in, and someone has to accept you on the project, and then you can start to translate.
Yeah, I mean,
I have a feeling that the project can set it up so that you can have the project acceptance thing, or you can just have it open so anyone can. Because I've never had to accept people for the project I manage, which is a mind mapping thing called Labyrinth.
Okay.
Are people able to install a translated version later, or do they have to pull in changes directly?
There are
just make separate
that's
releases.
Kind of up to how the project ships it. I think I saw something on the pull request about the possibility of having the translations as separate packages. So you would sort of do, pip install IPython Spanish or whatever. It would probably be with those 2-letter country codes, IPython ES. And that would have a dependency on IPython.
Okay. Well, we can keep looking at these things, and so
we'll have to kind of make that bit up as we go a bit, because I don't think many people have done. I mean, obviously, lots of people do localizing local applications, and lots of people do localizing websites, but localizing a local application that runs as a website, I suspect there isn't a lot of knowledge about best practices out there.
Yeah, it's a weird. Yeah, it's pretty weird. Okay. I think that's everything that I can think of for this meeting.
All right.
Anything else, or we done?
Looks like we're done.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Next week. And
Yeah.
bye-bye.
Bye, Internet.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye.